The truth is, life has no meaning.
I think I might have seen into another timeline for a second. Here's what happened. I had a playdate set up for my son's friend to come over to our place. My son was feeling a bit nervous about it that morning and wasn't really in the mood for his friend to come over. So he kept saying to cancel it, and he put it into the universe that they wouldn't come. He said that a few times. I didn't want to cancel it because I don't like cancelling things on others last minute. So I just left it. My son eventually got over these feelings and was looking forward to his friend coming. So the time comes where he's supposed to be dropped off, and they're not showing up. At first I thought they were just late, so we waited and waited. I kept looking out the window to see if they were there yet. Finally, when I look outside again, I see a burgundy car on the other side of my black car in the driveway. I say, they're here. So we go to the front door and wait a minute for a knock or a doorbell. Nothing happens. I'm like, So I open the door and look out. No one there. No car there. At this point, I'm so confused. I swear I saw a car there. So I thought maybe they showed up but just left for some reason. I texted her to see if they were still coming, but no response. I thought it was weird that the mum wouldn't text me to say they were late or couldn't make it after all. So we just assume they're not coming and get on with our day. Finally, hours later, I get a text from her saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I totally forgot about it." Which is fine, it happens. Just the weird part is that I saw a car there right around the time they would have showed up, if they did come. So I thought maybe when my son was hoping and praying that they wouldn't come that morning, it switched the timelines to where they forgot. But I briefly saw into the timeline where they did show up. Weird to think about. So this just happened about 3 days ago. My girlfriend and I, 27 male, live together and we have 2 dogs. We have a sliding glass door that goes out to a small enclosed porch area, and this is where we keep our dogs' food and water bowls. My girlfriend fed the dogs and closed the door, like she always does. One of our dogs is a spaz and won't eat unless we literally close the door and keep him out there. So she comes back in and sits on the couch, which is in the room by the sliding glass door. I'm sitting on a chair closest to the door where the handle to the door is directly to my left, and if I were to lean over far enough in the chair, I could probably open it. So this is where things got weird. After about 5 to 10 minutes, there was an abrupt noise, which was our dog basically wrecking through the blinds on the door and running back into the house. We have those tall vertical hanging white blinds that hang from the top all the way down to the floor. It startled me at first because of how sudden it was, and since it was totally right next to me. I didn't think a whole lot about it until I looked back outside where my other dog was still eating and the sliding glass door was still closed. What's even weirder is we had the blinds pulled open a decent amount so that when you open the sliding door to go outside, the blinds aren't in the way. So it's not even like he came in where the normal entrance of the door would be. It's like he phased through the middle of the door because that's where the blinds were pulled to, and that's how we noticed him coming in because the blinds were rocking back and forth. Also, in order to come back inside where he did, the door would have had to have been pulled all the way open. It was completely shut. I looked at my girlfriend and said, "The door is still closed. How did he get back in?" That's when she noticed too, and her eyes got big and we were both just like, what the hell, for a good 30 minutes. I can't seem to come up with any explanation. The door was completely closed, and even if it was cracked, which it wasn't, how would it have closed behind him, or explain the point of entrance he made, which was in the middle of the door? There was also no damage or dents or anything to the glass door. Long story short, my wife passed away in 2011 from multiple forms of cancer. Towards the end of her battle, we were staying at an extended stay type of hotel near the hospital. It made it easy for us to get her chemo and radiation without having to travel long distances. When we were walking down the hallway at this hotel, which many others had likely stayed at due to medical issues, we turned the corner. There were two young boys, both in swim-type clothing with a towel over their shoulder, probably 8 to 9 years old. They were about 50 feet in front of us. They approached the elevator and went inside. The doors closed and we figured we would wait for the next one. We walked up and pressed the button on the door, and it immediately popped open, with no one inside. There was no way it had any time to travel anywhere and return that quickly. We looked at each other in shock and couldn't fathom how this happened or where the boys went. It's bothered me to this day. To start off with an important note, I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and it really affects my day-to-day decisions. I try to follow through on my appointments, but sometimes it's not always possible if I have a bad reaction. So I had a haircut planned out, but that day I felt pretty shitty. I was considering turning around and going back home. I finally decided I'll just do my best and go get the appointment done. Fast forward to me sitting in the chair, getting the haircut when my barber gets a phone call. He picks up, and a few moments later is looking at me oddly. He said okay, no problem, and hung up. He walked up to me and was like, "You're DigitalAbuse, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Apparently, I just called him and said I'll be there a few minutes later, due to stomach issues. We both stared at the door, but no one ever came. Still the weirdest moment. My story happens back in August of this year. I have started a new job back in July and was settling in with my new responsibilities and co-workers. My partner had picked me up from work and we headed back to the house, but I stopped at the gas station along the way. I remember that it was raining that afternoon, all the way into the evening. Before I got out of the car, I made sure that I had my wallet on me and checked the contents of it. A $20 bill, a $10 bill, and a bunch of ones behind it. I can be a bit OCD when it comes to small things, especially when I have money in my wallet. I always organize my bills according to the monetary value, greatest to smallest. Reverse mathematical order, if you will. I also tend to check my wallets frequently to make sure nothing is missing. I walked into the gas station with my partner and we got everything that we had come in for and rang up our transactions separately. I vividly remember my total coming to $9.96. So I reached into my wallet and pulled out the $10 bill and placed it on the counter. As the cashier was bagging my things up, I looked down at the snack displays just below the counter to see if there was anything else I wanted to purchase to satisfy my late night sweet tooth. I looked up at the counter again and laying there was a $1 bill. Confused and thinking that I wasn't paying close enough attention and grabbed the wrong bill, I pulled my wallet out again and grabbed the proper change. That's when an audible "what the fuck" passed my lips. In my wallet, just behind the $20 bills, were a bunch of ones, just as they were before I got into the store. There was no $10 bill in my wallet. It's like it literally vanished into thin air. I began to check all my pockets that I had on me, but alas, there was no $10 bill anywhere on my person or in my possession. I'm not afraid to say that I indulge in the recreational use of marijuana, and I have a pretty high tolerance. I smoked a blunt before work as I normally do, and an hour or two into my 9-hour shift, the high wore off, and I was completely sober. So there is no way in hell that I imagined or hallucinated any of this. Nor do I have any history of doing the aforementioned. I know exactly how much money I had in my wallet, and I didn't spend any money that day either. My $10 bill had either disappeared or literally transformed into a $1 bill when I wasn't looking. Still confused, I paid with my $20 bill, got my change and left. But I was left seriously frazzled the rest of the evening. This definitely isn't one of the scariest entries, but I didn't know how odd it was until I actually started to write this out, and to be honest, I have goosebumps just thinking about it all over again. I still have so many questions. Where did my $10 bill go? How could a $10 bill be in someone's wallet all day and then just disappear as soon as you're about to pay for something for the first time that day? Did it actually transform into a $1 bill when I wasn't looking? It's amazing how something so small can just boggle your mind completely and make you question life, even more than you already do. So last year I was working a customer service role at an insurance company, over the phone work. We got a 20-minute morning break, 30-minute lunch, and a 20-minute afternoon break. During my lunch break one day, I went to sit in my car out in the car park and eat my food, to make it easier to have a smoke before going back inside. Plus, then I could listen to music while I eat. Basically, I'm a car enthusiast, and I tend to notice cars and their registration plate in passing. My eyes just sort of automatically go to cars and their plates, and take them in by way of habit. I was walking towards the smoking area, and I noticed a red Vauxhall Astra 2013 model up ahead, slowly starting to reverse out of a parking space. I got to the smokers area just behind the wall next to the Astra, which was reversing. I lit up my cigarette and turned around again to face the car, I guess to judge their driving skills. And instead of being a red Astra, it was now a red Audi A1 with the exact same registration plate, backing out of the parking space where the Astra had been not even 5 seconds ago. I watched it drive out of the car park and onto the road in complete shock. I thought about it constantly for the next week, and it started to make me feel sick and question everything in life the more I thought about it. Not really had anything else weird like this happen to me before, and I hope it doesn't cause more. It really freaked me out. I'm a police officer who works for a small town. For context, I'm also married with one child. One afternoon I woke up around 4:50 p.m. to get ready for the night shift. As I was getting ready, I had this strange feeling that something wasn't right. It didn't seem to bother me too much, and I assumed that I was just still hazy from waking up. I finished getting ready and went out to my car to leave for work. I got about a mile or two from my house, and the strange feeling returned. This time, I had a voice in my head telling me to go back home and call out. Being that I work for a small agency, I didn't have the luxury of calling out due to us being short-staffed. I continued on my way to work, which is about a 15 to 20 minute drive. As I got closer to town, I began having extreme anxiety to the point where my stomach felt like it was in knots. I got to work and met up with my sergeant. Me, knowing that my sergeant was going to leave around 12 a.m. and I would be by myself, I decided to tell him what I was feeling. He shrugged it off and just told me to watch my back. As the night drew on, my anxiety seemed to come and go. It definitely helped talking to my sergeant about it. But as we were in the patrol car talking, I heard a burglary call come out in the county for the same road I live on. Dispatch advised that they were on the phone with a female subject and she was hiding in the bathroom with a gun along with her daughter. I immediately opened the computer and realized it was my address. I frantically called my wife multiple times and couldn't get in touch with her. I began driving as fast as I could to get home. Thankfully, the deputies got there before I could, and everything seemed to be okay. I eventually got to the house and spoke with my wife about it. She stated that the house alarm went off while she was giving my daughter a bath. But what was strange was that the alarm was for a window break. I honestly didn't even know we had alarms for the windows, and I've never had any alarms for those go off before. It wasn't windy or raining outside either. Part of me wonders if someone may have tried to break in but freaked out when they heard the alarm. Either way, after that occurred, I returned to work and felt much better. It was my 18th birthday. Me and about 15 friends of mine had all just come back to my apartment building from a birthday dinner they had for me at TGI Fridays. The apartment building I grew up in is this tall building with only 2 elevators and 2 staircases. I lived on the 11th floor. Sometimes me and my friends or family my age would race elevators for fun as kids if we happened to have both elevators arrive at our floor at the same time. This was the case that night. Both elevators got to the lobby at the same time. Me and my friends packed into both elevators and hit the door close buttons at the same time. I heard the usual tone of the doors closing on both elevators, and they both closed within a split second of each other. There were about 7 or 8 of us packed into each elevator, but I was the only one in my elevator that lived in the building and knew the ins and outs of racing elevators for fun. I knew that both elevators were equal in speed and were fairly quick, and took maybe 10 seconds to get from the ground floor to my floor. There was not a chance in hell that anyone could scale the 11 flights of stairs quicker than that. I also knew that when both elevators were traveling in the same direction, me and my friends would be able to yell to each other through the elevator shaft and talk to each other in transit, as long as the elevators left at the same time and went in the same direction, which they did. So me and my rowdy teenage friends were all laughing and shouting to each other from elevator to elevator, and we could hear each other too. But about halfway up, the other elevator sounded more drowned out, like speaking into a fan. And then we stopped hearing them altogether. The way my old apartment building was designed, the elevators are in the very center of each floor, and each floor is just a long, single, rectangular hallway. My apartment was at the far corner of the building, as far as can be away from the staircases and elevators. When my elevator opened with my friends in it, I was ready to make a mad dash towards my apartment door, hopefully just beating out the other elevator door as it should have been opening, with just enough time for me and my friends in my elevator to get a head start and win the race to my apartment. Instead, we all flew out of our elevator to see no one else coming out of the other elevator. We didn't hear it open. We didn't hear several loud teenagers jump out like I had expected. It was as if the other elevator wasn't even used at the same time as we used ours, and our friends were nowhere to be found. I knew the timing of these elevators perfectly. I had grown up in this building since I was a toddler, and had taken these up and down and raced friends and neighbours with them my whole life. I found it really odd that the elevators didn't open up at the same time. I also thought that maybe the other one just stopped on another floor between the lobby and the 11th floor, which of course was a common thing to have happened, and would have been good news, since that would have meant we definitely won the elevator race. My elevator went as fast as it possibly could have gone, going straight from the lobby to the 11th floor. We all made our way down the hallway and into my apartment, and found that my family and neighbours had decorated the apartment with pictures of my friends and I, and surprised me with a cake. The strange part is that this whole surprise ensemble included all of my friends who were in the other elevator that went MIA. It was winter, and they all already had their jackets off and had thrown them onto my bed in my bedroom, and all looked as if they had already been hanging out inside the apartment for at least a few minutes. It made absolutely no sense. Both elevators left the lobby at the same time, and should have taken the exact same 10 seconds or so to reach my floor. But somehow, they had clearly got to my apartment minutes ago. I asked my friend in the other elevator how they got there so fast, and I just got a confused reaction from everyone, including my friends that were in my elevator too. I was the only one who was left scratching my head as to how everyone inside the other elevator seemed to teleport straight into my apartment somehow. Super weird. I just shrugged off the experience as best as I could at the moment, although it still has me wondering to this day how that happened. I'm a long-time reader of Glitch in the Matrix, and this memory always comes to mind when I start reading the latest posts. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for listening. This has bothered me since it happened, and it's so weird and makes no sense whatsoever. I was outside petting my cat. I was the only person out there. I didn't leave my porch steps at any time, and nobody came out there. My hands were empty, besides a cigarette I was smoking. Nothing was at the bottom of the steps. I go inside for less than 5 seconds to grab a cat brush and go back out. Nobody went out there in that time before I went back out there. I open the door, and there are 2 socks on the concrete next to the first step. A black one of my son's, and a white one of mine. I just stood there, at the top step, confused. My husband tried to convince me these socks were stuck to me somehow, and just fell off and landed there. I think I'd know if I had laundry just hanging off me. And they were wadded up. Both of them. My sock was clean at least, but in a bowl. Maybe the sock thief in my washer or dryer decided to give me them back? So in order to tell the whole story, which happened in 2020 when I was 18, I have to go back to when I was in middle school and mowed my neighbour's lawn for money. So I guess this started when I was in middle school. My dad talked to me about how I could start making money helping out neighbours. My neighbours were old and couldn't mow their own lawns, but didn't want to pay a company to do it for them. So they asked me. I started doing this for a couple of years before I was old enough to start doing real jobs. But during the time I'd mow their lawns, I had just gotten my first pair of headphones. I listened to music all day, wherever I was, so by instinct, I wore them while mowing the lawn. It was the early 2010s, so I listened to stuff like AWOL Nation, foster the people, etc. Fast forward to one of the last mows in September. I was listening to something by AWOL Nation as a girl and her family walked down the street. Before I notice her, I start to empty out the mower's bag and dump it into the woods across the street. I was really shy, so I'm sure I acted like I didn't see them, but she stops me anyway and asks what I was listening to. She just moved to my town and wanted to make friends, I assume. I probably just said AWOL Nation. I remember she said she liked Sail. End of the conversation for the most part, and without realizing it, I don't see her again until sophomore year of high school. So fast forward to June 15th, 2018, my sophomore year of high school. My still favorite band, AWOL Nation, is coming to Clifton Park, New York to play live. So I invite my friends and my dad to go with me. I wanted to be up front by the railing, so we got there hours before it started. We pull into the parking lot and see that there's maybe 2 more groups in line ahead of us already. As we walk towards the line, my dad sees one of our old neighbors, and it turns out it's the girl, her friends she invited, and her family I met while mowing the lawn. I introduced myself to everyone like it was my first time meeting them, but they say they remember me as the lawn mowing kid. So the concert starts and we walk in, and my friends and hers just end up sticking together since we were the youngest there probably. My parents stayed at the bar for drinks. Me and her talk for a bit between bands, and after the concert ends she asks for my number. Skip forward again. So at this point, me and my girlfriend have been dating from summer 2018 to January 2020. We've both bonded over our love for music and architecture. In February 2019, we take a train to go to Manhattan for winter break and have the best time of our lives there. The next year, we still live in Albany, New York, and wanted to go back to New York City for winter break and my birthday. Our now favorite artist, Tame Impala, has a set release date for his new album, The Slow Rush, which happens to be the same time we go to NYC. So we decide to wait and listen to it for the first time on the train ride down. As I'm packing, I find the old headphones I used to wear mowing the lawn in a box with my Xbox and stuff. They're actually pretty good, so I decided to bring them on the train instead of my AirPods. So now we're at the train station, wanting to get on as my girlfriend notices the headphones and kind of gasps and smiles, asking if those are my old goofy pair. Since it's early in the morning, she decided she wanted to sleep on the train ride this time and let me listen to the new album first, since it would have been awkward if both of us both were listening with different headphones instead of like a speaker or something. So I agree and give her my neck pillow thing, and I start listening after I see she's asleep, so she doesn't accidentally hear the music somehow. I start listening to AWOL Nation with my old headphones instead of the new album for old time's sake. After a couple of songs, I'm now in a good mood and finally put on the new album. The album opens up with the song One More Year. It immediately gave me this weird feeling, but I didn't really think much of it until now. I just kept listening. It starts off with this voice saying 1 more year. As a music enjoyer, I like the sound, but nonetheless, I still got creepy and sad vibes from it. As the lyrics start to come in, it word by word describes her and I's relationship. I start crying immediately in my seat, but thankfully, she's asleep still. When I say word for word, I mean it sounded like I was listening to myself, singing to Kate, saying our relationship is going to end in 1 year. The lyrics also kind of predict how COVID will keep us doing the same stuff and getting bored of each other, which was kind of what happened. I could keep going on about how weird I feel from it. But fast forward to February 2021, and I get a call from her saying she thinks she wants to break up. 1 year and 2 days after the train ride, I listened to the song 1 More Year. We broke up. Not once during that time, other than the first time I heard the song, did I think it was a prediction or message. Nor did I ever tell her. But now I can't hear the song without thinking it was some form of a message. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.